when this name issue was on the table, a lot of people from all over the world came into our capital in Skopje trying to convince us that, look, you are the front runners in the region, you are far, far ahead compared with the other countries from the Western Balkans. Immediately when you will provide solution for this dispute, then probably immediately you've become a member of NATO, and it will take probably 4 or 5 years, and you will become a member of EU. Those 4 or 5 years expired 2 years ago. And we are at the same place where we were 2.5 decades ago. Why? Because now a new hurdle, new constraint is in front of us. Again, change of a constitution. What is the substance of this new hurdle, new change of our constitution? We need to add into the preambula of our constitution, which is a descriptive part of our constitution, a part of Bulgarian people which are living in our country. And according to the last census data, we're talking about a couple of hundred people. We're not talking about millions, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people. We're talking about literally a couple of hundred people, which declared during the last census that their mother tongue is Bulgarian language. But however, citizens of my country, full of frustration, are asking me, okay, Prime Minister, what is now? What is now the problem? Why we need to change our constitution again? Okay, if we do this, this will be the last one, or probably there will be some additional in the future. Why we need to bring a couple of hundred citizens of our country into our constitution? We're talking about violation of someone's human rights. Who we are politicians to judge whether someone's rights being violated or not? We can only misuse that issue. The real institution which is judging whether someone's rights being violated or not is in Strasbourg. It's called European Court for Human Rights. And what European Court for Human Rights says during the last couple of years? 14 times in a favor of Macedonian community in Bulgaria, and 0 times in a favor of Bulgarian community in my country. So, then there is another question, additional question. Why we should change our constitution then? Why we are not talking about Macedonian community in Bulgaria? What about their human rights? What about their human rights? Because they are not allowed to register non-governmental organization. We're not talking about change of Bulgarian constitution. We're not talking about a sort of reciprocity. We're talking about registering non-governmental organization. And what we are saying, okay, the best corruptive government in Europe accepted that deal to change constitution, suspending the parliament in my country, suspending the voice of the parliament in my country, and they are now in the history. There is a new government, and this new government is saying, okay, those guys, those ladies and gentlemen accepted, but what about international law? What about resolution that is protecting human rights in the countries which are in the perimeter of European Union?
How do you communicate that specifically with this community? How do you build this dialogue with them? Trying to convince them, probably, or explain it to them.
You mean about Bulgarian community? They have all the rights. Our constitution is dead-like. They have literally all the rights. Practically, they are a part of our institutions. We are talking about a couple of hundred people. We're not talking about millions. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands. While on the other hand, we have tens of thousands members of Macedonian community in Bulgaria, which are not allowed, again, I'm emphasizing this, which are not allowed to register non-governmental organization. We're not talking about change of Bulgarian constitution. But okay, again, I'm saying, okay, they are in, we are out. This is a bit of bullying, okay? We would like to see ourselves on the table in Brussels, and what is now the price, and whether this is the last price that we should pay. This is the real question.
How do you see the other EU membership hopefuls, the candidate countries who are facing quite similar obstacles on their path? What would be some kind of piece of advice that you could share with your experience? Again, given that you had to overcome first one veto, then the second one veto, and then, as you said, who knows which one might come next?
I can't remember similar case. Maybe in the past that was a dispute between Slovenia and Croatia. In the meantime...
There is a certain veto happening now with the candidate countries, as we've heard with the president of Ukraine.
No, I'm talking about the past. About the current situation, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that the similar situation will occur in the future. Because if someone is witnessing that this veto tool works, then we should apply the same recipe. Why not? Because if someone dares to bully someone else who wants to join the club, why the others should be silent? This is not normal. If we are accepting that principle once, then this principle will destroy all the values developed by de Gasperi, Schuman, and Adenauer when this organization was developed. So, the European Union itself should ask themselves what we are doing. What we are doing with this unanimity. And is it according to the principles and values based on which we've been developed? So, I'm not surprised. And probably this will occur in the future again and again because it works. It obviously works because 2.5 decades ago, we started this journey and we are at the same place where we were 2.5 decades ago. Why? Because someone is misusing this tool.
And in this current situation, my final question to you would be, how disappointing it is for average Macedonians to, as you say, for over 2 decades to be, these are generations who've been waiting for over 2 decades and yet facing these roadblocks.
Very much.
Are they losing the motivation to join the European Union?
No, definitely. The support is the highest in the region, maybe, or among the highest in the region. I'm working as a professor and teaching mechatronics. For me, it was in my previous life. Now I'm the Prime Minister for almost a year and a half. But I was very sorry when I was witnessing how my students are willing to depart from the country. Why? Because simply they were missing hope. They felt hopeless. And most of them are living now in the European countries, in the EU countries. When I was elected as a Prime Minister, I said, okay, this is a hurdle. Probably there will be a lot of challenges in front of us until the very end. This is the destiny of the small nations. The big ones are doing what they can, and the small ones are doing what they must. Unfortunately, we are small. But let's do our homework. Let's finish our homework. Let's create a good environment. Let's bring back home youngsters, and let's develop something that will be good for them. And let's deliver homework that will impress EU. And maybe then someone from EU will say, enough is enough. Let's do something for them. Otherwise, this is damaging our values, and practically this does not have a future. And that's why I do believe that we need to finish our homework, and we are delivering. Since we were elected as a government, we are going in terms of economy. We have the biggest growth of our GDP, either it is real or nominal, among the top 3 or top 5 in the EU this year. In the previous year, we have low inflation rate, macroeconomical situation is quite decent, and people are coming back home, which is good.
So they're not losing. But thank you very much. We'll have to wrap it up here. Thank you for this experience and for sharing it with us here for the Enlargement talks. That was 12 minutes with Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Hristijan Mickoski. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. It was my pleasure.
So much, Sasha Vacalini, there for that, and of course to the Prime Minister. Fascinating to hear about your path from being a professor to Prime Minister, and also about those years and years of waiting to join the European Union. I've heard as well a lot of questions here on stage for the European Commission, so it's worth pointing out that a little bit later in the programme, the EU Commissioner responsible for enlargement, Martha Kuss, will be with us here live at our Enlargement Summit, so stay tuned for that as we move on in the programme and focus on a country that has said it hopes to be the next EU member. I'm speaking, of course, about Montenegro, and we're thrilled to have with us here physically in the room today the Deputy Prime Minister for Foreign and European Affairs, that's Filip Ivanovic, and he will be speaking to Mared Gwyn-Jones from Euronews. So a round of applause for them.
Welcome, Minister.
Hello.
Take a seat.
Thank you.
My guest is Filip Ivanovic. He is the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Foreign Affairs of Montenegro, and despite being the smallest of all the countries wishing to join the EU, it is considered a frontrunner and widely tipped to become the next EU member state. Deputy Prime Minister, welcome to 12 Minutes With. Thank you for joining us on Euronews.
Thank you for having me and for talking about Montenegro.
Well, let's talk about Montenegro. As I said, the smallest but the most advanced on its path to becoming an EU member. And you just received a glowing appraisal from the European Commission saying that if you keep up with this speed of reforms, you are on track to join in the next 3 years. Tell us then, what is the secret recipe for Montenegro's success?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that the report that we have just received is additional evidence to the plan that we as a government had, which is to have each of the reports being better than the previous ones. So previous year we had the best report up until then, and now this is the best report ever, so to say. So it is evidence of a very hard work of the government of Montenegro, but not just of the government, but also of other political institutions in the country. But it is also an introduction, I would say, to a very successful intergovernmental conference that we will have by the end of this year, where we will close several chapters. And on the other hand, it is, let's say, a blueprint of what we need to do in the forthcoming 12 or 13 months in order to fulfill our goal to finish the negotiations and to close all chapters by the end of 26. So I would say that the political dedication and hard work are the key ingredients of this success.
If you do meet that target and you are joining the EU around January 2028, as you aim to do, it will be 20 years since you first applied for EU membership. Do you feel that the process has been too demanding? Do you feel it's been too burdensome on you as a country?
It's not an easy question because, of course, it depends in what period of time you make this question. So, indeed, we have been negotiating for the past 13 years, and for many years the whole process was, I wouldn't say too demanding, but it was too technical. There wasn't any political will from the side of the EU member states to continue with the substance of enlargement. However, this has changed in the past 3 years, and we have made really good progress and we have made really good advancements. And unlike in the previous period of time, now we have a very generous and very important support from the European Commission, but also from EU member states. I would say that the European Union has finally understood that enlargement is one of the, if not the best possible policy that EU has ever had. It's actually the essence and the substance of the European Union, and that enlargement plays a key role in transforming European Union into a geopolitical and geostrategic player. So Montenegro is very much keen on contributing to this kind of dimension of the European Union, and we are looking forward to becoming the first next member, as you have said, of the EU, and this is why we are saying 28 by 28, so 28 member states by 2028.
We do hear, however, from EU officials, especially here in Brussels, concerns about the process of enlarging the Union and potential plans to integrate new members without giving them full voting rights. It's, I believe, a particular response to the way that some countries already within the European Union are using their veto power to block some foreign policy decisions. How would you feel about that? Would you accept that in 2028 Brussels would tell you you can come in to the club, you can join the club, but you won't have the full voting rights as all other member states have?
Well, I would say that the word concern is one of the key words here in Brussels, and we hear it from time to time on different aspects of European policy. So we do understand, of course, that EU has certain needs of being reformed itself. However, we want this process, without interfering with it, to go hand in hand or in parallel with the process of enlargement. What we are aiming at is full-fledged membership into the European Union, and this is why we are doing all the so-called homework in order to qualify to become equal partner at the table. But let me tell you, I do understand where these concerns come from. But for example, Montenegro has been for years aligned, 100% aligned with common foreign and security policy, and it continues to be so. And we actually had a different idea to become observers, regular observers at the Foreign Affairs Council, because if we are 100% aligned, why not be there without the right to vote, of course, until we become members. But what we expect is no less than full membership in the European Union.
You say that you are 100% aligned with the EU's foreign policy. Other neighbours in the Western Balkan region are not, and this is potentially why there are new ideas being brainstormed right now about potential integration. Would you be willing to be accepted initially without your full voting rights?
I would say that this is hardly acceptable, especially since, as I said, for years we have been aligned, and why we will not continue to be aligned. This is a very abstract and theoretical question. And of course, we do not want to be victims of anybody else who thinks differently. So, so far Montenegro has been aligned, has given its contribution to every decision of the European Union regarding its foreign and security policy, and we actually want to contribute to it more actively and not more passively.
Another idea that is making the rounds here in Brussels is this concept of a probation time, where a new country would join and would be trialed, in a sense, for a certain amount of time, maybe months, maybe years. How would you feel about that?
Well, we've been on trial for the past 13 years. And we'll be on trial until we close all negotiation chapters. So once we close the negotiation chapters, as far as I'm concerned, the trial is over.
I'd like to ask you a little bit more about the report that the Commission has just put out. It does ask you to clamp down on some things and to advance some reforms. It includes media freedom. It includes things like more coordination between ministers, because you have quite a big government. How are you looking to address these concerns?
Well, let me tell you first that, as we said at the beginning, this is by far the best report that we have ever received. But of course, it's not perfect. If it were perfect, we wouldn't be a candidate country. We would be already in the top 5 most advanced EU member states. So, of course, some work needs to be done. But there is no chapter in which we had any sort of regress or backsliding. So in every chapter, there is moderate success, advanced success, very good success, and so on. We have been described as a fully functional democracy with government that works in a democratic and stable, politically stable environment. The parliament has its key control function. There is a media pluralism that we are living in. The civil society has full freedom of their own activities, and so on and so on. But of course, there are certain recommendations that we want to take into account, not just regarding the coordination between the ministries, but also regarding showing more, even more progress in those chapters that concern the fight against organized crime and corruption. We are expecting to have a track record in final verdicts very soon, until we finish the negotiations. We will, of course, update and upgrade the legislative framework that regards freedom of expression, media pluralism, and so on and so on. But as I said, all in all, I think this is a very good report, and it is basically very similar to those reports that certain countries that are now members of the EU used to get 1 or 2 or 3 years before they joined the European Union. And as I said at the beginning, this report is not just an introduction to a successful intergovernmental conference by the end of this year, but it is also a blueprint for the things that we need and want to do by the end of 26.
I'm going to ask you to perhaps wear your hat of foreign minister in answering this question. But how much of a geopolitical signal would it be if the EU were to accept Montenegro as a new country, and how much of a geopolitical cost would that be if the EU failed to do that swiftly?
Answer to both of the questions is huge. So it would be a huge gain for the European Union to finally prove that countries that do their job and that are actually willing to accede and can become members of the EU, because, as I said, it is the best policy that EU has ever had, the very substance of the European Union. Because if the enlargement does not happen, not just with Montenegro, but also with other candidate countries, then the very concept of European Union loses its credibility. It's not European, it's not Union anymore. So with Montenegro, European Union is going to prove its very name, is going to prove its concept, is going to prove its values, and is going to prove its geopolitical status. However, if that does not happen, then it's a big loss, not just for Montenegro and candidate countries, but for the European Union, because European Union will then fail the promises and it will lose credibility. For us, it will be a devastating situation in which we are performing all the reforms and are not becoming member of the EU, and it will be a horrible signal to all other candidate countries, because then they would understand that whatever they do is vain. And this is something that we cannot accept.
Finally, Deputy Prime Minister, you come from a region where some countries have been in the waiting room for decades. Do you think it could be a pull factor? That is, could it send an important signal to the Western Balkans and encourage them to really accelerate their reforms? If Montenegro were to join, would it be a broader boost for that region of the world?
As I previously said, if Montenegro does not join, it's going to be bad for the European Union, it's going to be bad for Montenegro, and it's going to send a very bad message to other candidate countries. And it works the other way around. If Montenegro becomes the member of the EU according to the fair, strict and merit-based approach that we fully support, and that has been also envisioned in the enlargement package that we saw, then, as I said, EU confirms its credibility and it boosts its geopolitical players' status. Of course, for us, it boosts our economy, rule of law, democracy, the feeling of our citizens that actually feel like they are there and they are knocking at the door. They just need this door to be open. And again, it will be a tremendously important message to all other candidate countries, because it will prove that hard work and political dedication pays off, to put it in those terms. But it will also prove all other voices that are not very friendly towards the Western Balkans and not very friendly towards the European Union, that keep saying, whatever you do, you will not become member of the EU. So we need to prove those voices wrong.
Minister, thank you so much. All the best with your reforms to come. Thank you for joining us on 12 Minutes With.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And of course, now we're going to take a 30-minute break. But of course, stay tuned and stay with us if you're watching from home, online, on YouTube, and on Euronews.com, because we still have a lot more to come. The EU's Enlargement Commissioner will be with us. She's the moment of the hour, so you should want to stay for that. We'll also be joined by Serbia's President, Aleksandar Vučić, and of course, the Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama. So we'll be right back. Stay with us.